This is Late Night Classics with me, Bibi Jacob. I'll be reading you my selection of Greek and Roman classics to accompany you into the night. Welcome back. We had a brief visit to the Underworld with Persephone in our first episode. Tonight, it's time to truly descend in the company of the formidable Cumaean Sibyl. Virgil's brilliant Aeneid takes us on a journey with the Trojan prince Aeneas and his companions who've escaped the fall of Troy and now seek a new home. In Book 3, the Trojan seer Helenus advises Aeneas to visit the mysterious Sibyl for guidance. He says, "Draw near to the town of Cumae, the haunted lakes, and Avernus with its rustling woods. You will see an inspired prophetess who deep in a rocky cave sings the fates and entrusts to leaves, signs, and symbols." So here we are in Book 6. Aeneas finds the Sibyl, who agrees to accompany him into the depths to see his now dead father. One of the things I absolutely love about this section of the book is that it gives us a real sense of the geography of the Underworld with all its different zones and the beings that inhabit those zones. This is an edited down version of the text. I've lightened some of the passages connected to the Trojan War and Aeneas' companions because I want the focus to be on Hades itself. Enough talking. It's time to descend and discover the secrets buried in the depths and darkness of the earth. He gives his fleet the reins and at last glides up to the shores of Euboean Cumae. Loyal Aeneas seeks the heights where Apollo sits enthroned, and a vast cavern hard by, hidden haunt of the dread Sibyl, into whom the Delian seer breathes a mighty mind and soul, revealing the future. Now they pass under the grove of Trivia and the roof of gold. Daedalus, it is said, when fleeing from Minos' realm, dared on swift wings to trust himself to the sky. On his unwanted way, he floated forth towards the cold north, and at last stood lightly poised above the Chalcidian hill. Here, first restored to earth, he dedicated to thee, Phoebus, the orange of his wings, and built a vast temple. On the doors is the death of Androgeus. Then the children of Cecrops, bidden alas to pay as yearly tribute 7 living sons. There stands the urn, the lots now drawn. Opposite, rising from the sea, the Cretan land faces this. Here is the cruel love of the bull Pasiphae craftily mated, and the mongrel breed of the Minotaur, a hybrid offspring, a record of a monstrous love. There that house of toil, a maze inextricable. But Daedalus, pitying the princess's great love, himself unwound the deceptive tangle of the palace, guiding blind feet with the thread. You too, Icarus, would have large share in such a work, did grief permit. Twice had he essayed to fashion your fall in gold. Twice sank the father's hands. Aye, and all the tale throughout would their eyes have scanned. But now came Achates from his errand, and with him the priestess of Phoebus and Trivia, Deiphebe, daughter of Glaucus, who addressed the king. Not sights like these does this hour demand. Now it were better to sacrifice 7 bullocks from the unbroken herd, and as many ewes fitly chosen. Having thus addressed Aeneas, and not slow are the men to do her sacred bidding, the priestess calls the Teucrians into the lofty fane. The huge side of the Euboean rock is hewn into a cavern, into which lead 100 wide mouths, 100 gateways, from which rush as many voices, the answers of the Sibyl. They had come to the threshold when the maiden cries, "'Tis time to ask the oracles. The god, lo, the god." As thus she spoke before the doors, suddenly not countenance nor colour was the same, nor stayed her tresses braided, but her bosom heaves, her heart swells with wild frenzy, and she is taller to behold, nor has her voice a mortal ring, since now she feels the nearer breath of deity. "Are you slow to vow and to pray?" she cries. "Are you slow, Trojan Aeneas? For till then the mighty mouths of the awestruck house will not gape open." So she spoke, and was mute. A chill shudder ran through the Teucrians' sturdy frames, and their king pours forth prayers from his inmost heart. Phoebus, who never failed to pity Troy's agony. But the prophetess, not yet brooking the sway of Phoebus, storms wildly in the cavern, if so she may shake the mighty god from her breast. So much the more he tires her raving mouth, tames her wild heart, and moulds her by constraint. And now the 100 mighty mouths of the house have opened of their own will, and bring through the air the seer's reply. "O you that have at length survived the great perils of the sea, yet by land more grievous woes lie in wait. Into the realm of Lavinium the sons of Dardanus shall come, relieve your heart of this care. Yet they shall not also rejoice in their coming. Wars, grim wars I see, and the Tiber foaming with streams of blood. The road to safety, little though you think it, shall first issue from a Grecian city." In these words, the Cumaean Sibyl chants from the shrine her dread enigmas, and booms from the cavern, wrapping truth in darkness. So does Apollo shake his reins as she rages, and ply the goad beneath her breast. As soon as the frenzy ceased, and the raving lips were hushed, Aeneas, the hero, begins. "For me no form of toils arises, O maiden, strange or unlooked for. All this have I foreseen and debated in my mind. One thing I pray, since here is the famed gate of the Nether King, and the gloomy marsh from Acheron's overflow, be it granted me to pass into my dear father's sight and presence, show the way, and open the hallowed portals. Amid flames and 1,000 pursuing spears, I rescued him on these shoulders, and brought him safe from the enemy's midst. He, the partner of my journey, endured with me all the seas and all the menace of ocean and sky, weak as he was, beyond the strength and portion of age. He it was who prayed and charged me humbly to seek you and draw near to your threshold. Pity both son and sire, I beseech you, gracious one, for you are all-powerful, and not in vain did Hecate make you mistress in the groves of Avernus. If Orpheus availed to summon his wife's shade, strong in his Thracian lyre and tuneful strings, if Pollux, dying in turn, ransomed his brother, and so many times comes and goes his way, why speak of Theseus? Why of Hercules the mighty? I too have descent from Jove most high." In such words he prayed and clasped the altar. When thus the prophetess began to speak. "Sprung from blood of gods, son of Trojan Anchises, easy is the descent to Avernus. Night and day the door of gloomy Dis stands open. But to recall one's steps and pass out to the upper air, this is the task, this the toil. Some few whom kindly Jupiter has loved, or shining worth uplifted to heaven, sons of the gods have availed. In all the mid-space lie woods, and Cocytus girds it, gliding with murky folds. But if such love is in your heart, if such a yearning, twice to swim the Stygian lake, twice to see black Tartarus, and if you are pleased to give rein to the mad endeavour, hear what must first be done. there lurks in a shady tree a bough, golden leaf and pliant stem, held consecrate to nether Juno Proserpine. This all the grove hides, and shadows veil in the dim valleys. But it is not given to pass beneath earth's hidden places before someone has plucked from the tree the golden tressed fruitage. This has beautiful Proserpine ordained to be born to her as her own gift. When the first is torn away, a second fails not, golden too, and the spray bears leaf of the self-same ore. Search then, with eyes aloft, and when found, duly pluck it with your hand, for of itself will it follow you, freely and with ease, if fate be calling you. Else with no force will you avail to win it, or rend it with hard steel. Moreover, there lies the dead body of your friend. Ah, you know it not, and defiles all the fleet with death, while you seek counsel and hover on our threshold. Bear him first to his own place, and hide him in the tomb. Lead black cattle, be these your first peace offerings. Only so will you survey the Stygian groves and realms the living may not tread. She spoke, and with closed lips was silent. With sad countenance and downcast eyes, Aeneas wends his way, quitting the cavern, and ponders in his mind the dark issues. At his side goes loyal Achates, and plants his steps under a like load of care. Much varied discourse were they weaving, each with each, of what dead comrades spoke the soothsayer, of what body for burial. And as they came, they see on the dry beach Maecenas, cut off by untimely death. Then, weeping, they quickly carry out the Sibyl's commands, and toil to pile up trees from the altar of his tomb and rear it to the sky. And alone Aeneas ponders with his own sad heart, gazing on the boundless forest, and as it chanced, thus prays, "Oh, if now that golden bough would show itself to us on the tree in the deep wood! For all things truly, too truly did the seer say of you, Maecenas." Scarce had he said these words, when under his very eyes twin doves, as it chanced, came flying from the sky and lit on the green grass. Then the great hero knew them for his mother's birds, and prays with joy, "Be my guides, if any way there be, and through the air steer a course into the grove, where the rich bough overshades the fruitful ground. And you, goddess mother, fail not my dark hour." So speaking, he checked his steps, marking what signs they bring, where they direct their course. Then when they came to the jaws of noisome Avernus, they swiftly rise, and dropping through the unclouded air, perch side by side on their chosen goal, a tree, through whose branches flashed the contrasting glimmer of gold. As in winter's cold, amid the woods, the mistletoe, sown of an alien tree, is wont to bloom with strange leafage, and with yellow fruit embrace the shapely stems. Such was the vision of the leafy gold on the shadowy ilex. So rustled the foil in the gentle breeze. Forthwith Aeneas plucks it, and greedily breaks off the clinging bough, and carries it beneath the roof of the prophetic Sibyl. A deep cave there was, yawning wide and vast, of jagged rock, and sheltered by dark lake and woodland gloom, over which no flying creatures could safely wing their way. Such a vapour from those black jaws was wafted to the vaulted sky, whence the Greeks spoke of Avernus, the birdless place. Here, first the priestess set in line 4 dark-backed heifers, and pours wine upon their brows. Then, plucking the topmost bristles from between the horns, lays them on the sacred fire for first offering, calling aloud on Hecate, supreme both in heaven and in hell. Others set knives to the throat and catch the warm blood in bowls. Aeneas himself slays with the sword a black-fleeced lamb to Night, the mother of the Eumenides, and her great sister Earth, and to you, Proserpine, a barren heifer. Then for the Stygian king he inaugurates an altar by night and lays upon the flames whole carcasses of bulls, pouring fat oil over the blazing entrails. But just before the rays and dawning of the early sun, the ground rumbled underfoot, the wooded ridges began to quiver, and through the gloom dogs seemed to howl as the goddess Hecate drew nigh. "Away, away, you that are uninitiated," shrieks the seer. "Withdraw from all the grove, and you rush on the road and unsheathe your sword. Now, Aeneas, is the hour for courage, now for a dauntless heart." So much she said, and plunged madly into the opened cave. He, with fearless steps, keeps pace with his advancing guide. You gods who hold the domain of spirits, you voiceless shades, you chaos, and you Phlegethon, you broad hushed tracts of night, suffer me to tell what I have heard. Suffer me of your grace to unfold secrets buried in the depths and darkness of the earth. On they went dimly, beneath the lonely night amid the gloom, through the empty halls of Dis and his phantom realm, even as under the grudging light of a fitful moon lies a path in the forest, when Jupiter has buried the sky in shade, and black night has stolen from the world her hues. Just before the entrance, even within the very jaws of hell, grief and avenging cares have set their bed. There pale diseases dwell, sad age and fear and hunger, temptress to sin, and loathly want, shapes terrible to view, and death and distress, next death's own brother sleep, and the soul's guilty joys, and on the threshold opposite, the death-dealing war, and the fury's iron cells, and maddening strife, her snaky locks entwined with bloody ribbons. In the midst, an elm, shadowy and vast, spreads her boughs and aged arms, the home which men say false dreams hold, clinging under every leaf. And many monstrous forms besides of various beasts are stalled at the doors, centaurs and double-shaped scyllas, and the hundredfold briarus, and the beast of Lerna hissing horribly, and the chimera armed with flame, gorgons and harpies, and the shape of the three-bodied shade Geryon. Here, on a sudden, in trembling terror, Aeneas grasps his sword and turns the naked edge against their coming. And did not his wise companion warn him that these were but faint, bodiless lives, flitting under a hollow semblance of form, he would rush upon them and vainly cleave shadows with steel. From here, a road leads to the waters of Tartarian Acheron. Here, thick with mire and a fathomless flood, a whirlpool seethes and belches into Cocytus all its sand. A grim ferryman guards these waters and streams, terrible in his squalor. Charon, on whose chin lies a mass of unkempt, hoary hair. His eyes are staring orbs of flame, his squalid garb hangs by a knot from his shoulders. Unaided he poles the boat, tends the sails, and in his murky craft convoys the dead. Now aged, but a god's old age is hardy and green. Hither rushed all the throng, streaming to the banks, mothers and men and bodies of high-souled heroes, their life now done, boys and unwedded girls, and sons placed on the pyre before their fathers' eyes, thick as the leaves of the forest that at autumn's first frost drop and fall, and thick as the birds that from the seething deep flock shoreward when the chill of the year drives them overseas and sends them into sunny lands. They stood, pleading to be the first ferried across, and stretched out hands in yearning for the farther shore. But the surly boatman takes now these, now those, while others he thrusts away, back from the brink. Then aroused and amazed by the disorder, Aeneas cries, "Tell me, maiden, what means the crowding to the river? What seek the spirits? By what rule do these leave the banks, and those sweep the lurid stream with oars?" To him thus briefly spoke the aged priestess. "Anchises' son, true offspring of gods, you are looking at the deep pools of Cocytus and the Stygian marsh, by whose power the gods fear to swear falsely. All this crowd that you see is helpless and graveless. Yonder ferryman is Charon. Those whom the flood carries are the buried. He may not carry them over the dreadful banks and hoarse-voiced waters until their bones have found a resting place. 100 years they roam and flit about these shores. Then only are they admitted and revisit the longed-for pools." Anchises' son paused and stayed his steps, pondering much and pitying in his heart their unjust lot. They pursue the journey begun and draw near to the river. But when, even from the Stygian wave, the boatman saw them passing through the silent wood and turning their feet towards the bank, he first, unhailed, accosts and rebukes them. "Whoever you are who come to our river in arms, tell me, even from there, why you come, and check your step. This is the land of shadows, of sleep and drowsy night. Living bodies I may not carry in the Stygian boat. And in truth, it brought me no joy that I took Heracles on his journey over the lake, or Theseus and Pirithous, those sons of gods and invincible in valour, the one by force sought to drag into chains, even from the monarch's throne, the warder of Tartarus, and tore him off trembling. These essay to carry off our queen from the chamber of Dis." In answer, the Amphrysian soothsayer spoke briefly. "No such trickery is here. Be not troubled. Our weapons offer no force. The huge doorkeeper may from his cave with endless howl affright the bloodless shades. Proserpine may in purity keep within her uncle's threshold. Trojan Aeneas, famous for piety and arms, descends to his father, to the lowest shades of Erebus. If the picture of such piety in no wise moves you, yet know this bow." And she shows the bow, hidden in her robe. At this his swelling breast subsides from its anger. No more is said, but he, marvelling at the dread gift, the fateful one so long unseen, turns his blue barge and nears the shore. Then other souls that sat on the long thwarts he routs out, and clears the gangways. At once he takes aboard giant Aeneas. The seamy craft groaned under the weight, and through its chinks took in marshy flood. At last, across the water, he lands seer and soldier unharmed on the ugly mire and grey sedge. These realms huge Cerberus makes ring with his triple-throated baying, his monstrous bulk crouching in a cavern opposite. To him, seeing the snakes now bristling on his necks, the seer flung a morsel, drowsy with honey and drugged meal. He, opening his triple throat in ravenous hunger, catches it when thrown, and with monstrous frame relaxed, sinks to earth and stretches his bulk over all the den. The warder buried in sleep, Aeneas wins the entrance, and swiftly leaves the bank of that stream whence none return. At once are heard voices and wailing sore, the souls of infants weeping, whom on the very threshold of the sweet life they shared not, torn from the breast, the black day swept off and plunged in bitter death. Near them were those on false charge condemned to die, Yet not without lot, not without a judge are these places given. Minos presiding shakes the urn. He it is who calls a conclave of the silent and learns men's lives and misdeeds. The region thereafter is held by those sad souls who in innocence wrought their own death, and loathing the light, flung away their lives. How gladly now in the air above would they bear both want and harsh distress. Fate withstands. The unlovely mere with its dreary water enchains them, and Styx imprisons with his ninefold circles. Not far from here, outspread on every side, are shown the mourning fields. Such is the name they bear. Here those whom stern love has consumed with cruel wasting are hidden in walks withdrawn, embowered in a myrtle grove. Even in death the pangs leave them not. In this region he sees Phaedra and Procris and sad Eriphyle, pointing to the wounds her cruel son had dealt, and Evadne and Pasiphae. With them goes Laodamia, and Aeneas, once a youth, now a woman, and again turned back by fate into her form of old. Among them, with wounds still fresh, Phoenician Dido was wandering in the great forest, and soon as the Trojan hero stood near and knew her, a dim form amid the shadows, even as in the early month one sees or fancies he has seen the moon rise amid the clouds, he shed tears and spoke to her in tender love. Unhappy Dido, was the tale true then that came to me that you were dead and had sought your doom with the sword? Was I, alas, the cause of your death? By the stars I swear, by the world above, and whatever is sacred in the grave below, unwillingly, Queen, I parted from your shores. But the gods' decrees which now constrain me to pass through these shades, through lands squalid and forsaken, and through abysmal night, drove me with their behests. Nor could I deem my going thence would bring on you distress so deep. Stay your step, and withdraw not from our view. Whom do you flee? This is the last word fate suffers me to say to you. With these words, amid springing tears, Aeneas strove to soothe the wrath of the fiery, fierce-eyed queen. She, turning away, kept her looks fixed to the ground, and no more changes her countenance as he essays to speak than if she were set in hard flint. At length she flung herself away, and still his foe fled back to the shady grove, where Sychaeus, her lord of former days, responds to her sorrows and gives her love for love. Yet, nonetheless, stricken by her unjust doom, Aeneas attends her with tears afar and pities her as she goes. Thence he toils along the way that offered itself. And now they gained the farthest fields, where the renowned in war dwelt apart. And here he sees Deiphobus, son of Priam, his whole frame mangled, and his face cruelly torn. Dawn with roseate car had now crossed mid-heaven in her skiey course, and the Sibyl beside him gave warning with brief words. Night is coming, Aeneas. We waste the hours in weeping. Here is the place where the road parts. There to the right, as it runs under the walls of Great Dis, is our way to Elysium. But the left wreaks the punishment of the wicked and sends them on to pitiless Tartarus. Suddenly, Aeneas looks back, and under a cliff on the left sees a broad castle girt with triple wall and encircled with a rushing flood of torrent flames. Tartarian Phlegethon that rolls along thundering rocks. In front stands a huge gate and pillars of solid adamant that no might of man, nay, not even the sons of heaven, could uproot in war. There stands an iron tower, soaring high, and Tisiphone, sitting girt with bloody pall, keeps sleepless watch over the portal night and day. From it are heard groans, the sound of the savage lash, the clank of iron, and the dragging of chains. Aeneas stopped, and terrified, drank in the tumult. What forms of crimes are these? Say, O maiden, with what penalties are they scourged? What is this vast wailing on the wind? Then the seer thus began to speak. Famed chieftain of the Teucrians, no pure soul may tread the accursed threshold. But when Hecate set me over the groves of Avernus, she taught me the gods' penalties and guided me through all. Cretan Rhadamanthus holds here his iron sway. He chastises and hears the tale of guilt, exacting confession of crimes, whenever in the world above any man, rejoicing in vain deceit, has put off atonement for sin until death's late hour. Straightway, avenging Tisiphone, girt with a lash, leaps on the guilty to scourge them, and with left hand brandishing her grim snakes, calls on her savage sister band. Then at last, grating on harsh, jarring hinge, the infernal gates open. Do you see what sentry Tisiphone sits in the doorway? What shape guards the threshold? The monstrous Hydra, still fiercer, with her 50 black gaping throats, dwells within. Then Tartarus itself yawns sheer down, stretching into the gloom twice as far as is the upward view of the sky toward heavenly Olympus. Here the ancient sons of earth, the Titans' brood, hurled down by the thunderbolt, writhe in lowest abyss. Here too I saw the twin sons of Aeneas, giant in stature, whose hands try to tear down high heaven and thrust down Jove from his realm above. Likewise one might see Tityus, nursling of earth, the mother of all. Over 9 full acres his body is stretched, and a monstrous vulture with crooked beak gnaws at his deathless liver and vitals, fruitful of anguish. Deep within the breast he lodges and gropes for his feast, nor is any respite given to the filaments that grow anew. Why tell of the Lapiths, Ixion and Pirithous, and of him, Tantalus, over whom hangs a black crag that seems ready to slip and fall at any moment? High festal couches gleam with backs of gold, and before their eyes is spread a banquet in royal splendour. Reclining hard by, the eldest Fury stays their hand from touch of the table, springing forth with uplifted torch and thunderous cries. Here were they who in lifetime hated their brethren, or smote a sire, and entangled a client in wrong, or who brooded in solitude over wealth they had won, nor set aside a portion for their kin, the largest number this, who were slain for adultery, or who followed the standard of treason, and feared not to break allegiance with their lords. All these, immured, await their doom. Seek not to learn that doom, or what form of crime or fate overwhelmed them. Some roll a huge stone, or hang outstretched on spokes of wheels. Hapless Theseus sits, and evermore shall sit. And Phlegyas, most unblessed, gives warning to all, and with loud voice bears witness amid the gloom. Be warned, learn ye to be just, and not to slight the gods. This one sold his country for gold, and fastened on her a tyrant lord. He made and unmade laws for a bribe. This forced his daughter's bed and a marriage forbidden. All dared a monstrous sin, and what they dared attained. Nay, had I 100 tongues, 100 mouths, and voice of iron, I could not sum up all the forms of crime, or rehearse all the tale of torments. So spoke the aged priestess of Phoebus, then adds, But come now, hasten your steps, and fulfill the task in hand. Let us hasten. I descry the ramparts reared by Cyclopean forges, and the gates with fronting arch, where they bid us lay the appointed gifts. She ended, and advancing side by side along the dusky way, they haste over the mid-space and draw near the doors. Aeneas wins the entrance, sprinkles his body with fresh water, and plants the bough full on the threshold. This at length performed, and the task of the goddess fulfilled, they came to a land of joy, the pleasant lawns and happy seats of the blissful groves. Let's leave Aeneas here, on the threshold of the Elysian fields, just before he's tearfully reunited with his father's shade. It's Anchises, his father, who takes over as guide in this part of the underworld, explaining first to his son how souls are reborn. He shows Aeneas that he's destined to found a city that will one day become Rome. Augustus, the Roman emperor in Virgil's day, even makes a cameo. Personally, I prefer to linger a little longer with the Sibyl, a character very dear to my heart. She guided me to Cumae to visit what might have been her cave, and then to Stoke Newington in London, where I performed a version of her story in a cemetery. I'm looking forward to see where she may take me next. Late Night Classics is presented by me, Bibi Jacob. Sound and production by Geoff Chong. The extract I read you was from Book 6 of Virgil's Aeneid. It was adapted and edited from a translation by H.R. Fairclough, which is in the public domain. If you like the show, please remember to rate, share, and review.